Okay, first up, I gotta say, it took me to do a lot of research just to find out how to pronounce the name of this book. I looked at different websites. I looked up, how do you pronounce this in Japanese, and to no luck whatsoever. The only way I found out how to pronounce this is I found out that it was turned into an anime, and it's available on YouTube to watch. And I guess it's pronounced Gen, like Ken. So this is my review of Barefoot Gen, a cartoon story of Hiroshima. I just recently finished reading Volume 1, and I had just started reading Volume 2, which is the day after. And they're by Keiji Nakazawa. They're different than the traditional mangas. They're in the English format, so they read, the way we normally read books, and they're translated into English, of course. I guess that the author of this series is on a mission to translate this story that's kind of semi-biographical into as many different languages as he possibly can to raise awareness about the dangers of nuclear warfare and how it should be abolished, that nobody should be using nuclear arms. So, a little bit about this book. The first volume, it takes place a few months before the dropping of the bomb in Hiroshima. So you meet Gen and his family, and Gen and his family are a little bit different than all the other Japanese, and this is one of the things I really enjoyed about reading this book, was that it helped me to see what it was like during World War II Japan, just what it was like to be a civilian. And I'm very interested in seeing how other cultures, like their interpretation of history and how they see events. Because honestly, being an American, we only get, and it doesn't matter if you're American, you're British, or you're Japanese, or from whatever country you come from, you only get the one side of that story, and it's usually in favor of your nation. So I like to read about other interpretations of world events, just to see and try to figure out for myself exactly what had gone down. So I found this kind of interesting, and Gen's family are they're kind of like hippies, like they don't really agree with the war. His father is very outspoken against the war, and his whole village, well, not really village, it's the city of Hiroshima, but their little area of the city, like, they all treat his family like crap, and they call him a traitor just because he doesn't, go with all the fascist ideals of how the emperor, they're doing it for the emperor, and how they should all go die. And it's, really radical stuff. You see how at some point in the book, how people are just willing to commit suicide, women and children are jumping off of the cliffs and stuff like that, or they're, willing to, be like suicide bombers and strap bombs to themselves and be ran over by tanks. Really crazy stuff. And that's the thing, I guess, he's trying to tell us, that a lot of people were really brainwashed into believing that what they were doing was the right thing to do for their nation. And a lot of the things we don't realize is that a lot of the common Japanese were really poor, and they starved. They didn't really have food, and that was the common theme, the occurrence of how they never had any food, really. And there's at one point where they had to go get locusts in the field because they were so hungry, and at one point they got food, but then a police officer stopped them and accused them of having stolen it, or buying it on the black market and keeping it for themselves. A lot of crazy stuff like that. It just, of course, it was written in a way I don't know if only have minimal exposure to manga, but it's written in that, over exaggerated style where, they cry and they've got like, the forever crying, rivers of tears, and everything's over exaggerated, like, they constantly bonk them on the head, silly stuff like that, which I really found that to be really immature, and it kind of took away from the seriousness of the story. But yeah, I thought it was an okay read. I did find out that this is a 10-volume series, and I have to admit, in all honesty, my local library only had the 2 volumes. I really don't think I'm going to seek out the other 8 volumes in this series. I'm just going to finish reading volume 2 because it's the day after the bombing, and that's going to be enough for me. I'm satisfied. I'm not really... I gave it a 3 on Goodreads. I just thought it was an okay read. Other than that, I thought it was really interesting to learn a little bit about Japanese culture in the 1940s. It was kind of interesting. I thought it was kind of neat how the little boy Gen and his little brother Shinji, I think his name was, how they were always like getting into trouble, but they were always doing it to help other people. I thought that was kind of neat that, they were good-hearted people when the rest of the village or the people in their area thought they were traitors. And just the radicalism, like how people were treated if they didn't, like, go with the whole sheep mentality of how they had to follow and do and say what everybody else was telling them to do. At one point, it did get a little annoying how the father was like, I'm so against this war, that's blah, blah, blah war. It was such a recurring theme in the book that it just got annoying at some point. It was like, man, I mean, I get what the author was trying to say. I got it, but I think it was a little overdone. But yes, it was a very tragic event, and you see some of the horrors, how like the people's skin was just melting from the bomb, and people were blinded, and there were maggots and dead people everywhere. It just reminds us of the horrors, the reality of it. And it doesn't help that it's in black and white. So if you do get a chance, go ahead and check out the anime. It's available on YouTube to be viewed. I saw a little bit of it, and I might watch a little bit of it later. But I'm not really too big on animes. I find animes annoying just because of that silliness that's always in Japanese animation and comic books, etc. So that is my thoughts and opinions on the Barefoot Gang Volume 1, and Volume 2 just is a little bit after. It's the day after, so I don't really have too much to say about it. I'm almost done with it. So thanks for tuning in, and until next time. Later, guys.